Hello, I'm Louis Metzger, Director of the Institute for Cultural Engagement, New Wine, New Wineskins. Welcome to New Wine Tastings. It's my privilege today to interview Heather Stenberg, who is the Executive Director of Stevens Place in Vancouver, Washington. Heather, thanks so much for being willing to be interviewed here on New Wine Tastings.
Thank you for having me.
Heather, Stevens Place, what is the backdrop for both the name and this beautiful, beautiful venue, this center? Stevens Place.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, I think it's the love that a parent brings to the table. And so it was parents who had two sons with disabilities. And one of those sons, Stephen, passed away in his 20s. And the other is a resident here now. And when they were born, it was a time where many people with disabilities were put into institutions, and they said that's not what we want for our sons. We want our sons to have everything that we have. As a parent, you tend to do that, and that was it for them as well. Really a beautiful thing that then they got to continue to support them in life and make sure that they had all those things. And then when they came to the moment and where they said, what's going to happen at the end of the day when we're not here to care for our son and make sure that he has all of the things that we want him to, that they then have the fortune of being able to create something like Stevens Place. And so our residents get to move in and can age in place with us and be with us through end of life.
Wow, that's amazing. And so instead of institutionalizing them, they're brought into a community where there's real care and mutuality and a real sense of family, I'm assuming.
It ends up feeling a lot like family. And our goal at the end of the day really is, that they have a place to live, but it's not just a place to live, it's a community. And so our residents are regularly in our local community. Community members and people from throughout are regularly here. They're working and living a life just like you and I, and just like everybody gets to and should get to have.
And we were talking earlier today about the various educational centers, religious centers, Habitat for Humanity. There's a grade school, there's a preschool, 2 or 3 churches right around here. So it's a very unique context. And I think you said that there's a lot of connection, like with the school, Habitat for Humanity, one of the churches here. You want to just mention that a little bit? Just about, there's a larger community right at your doorstep that you're part of.
Yeah, so it's really great when our residents are able to get out into the community and do, go to sporting events and, go to the coffee shop and get coffee, go shopping, all of those things. But then also being able to have our local community just in our neighborhood be a part of who we are is really important to us. So we regularly volunteer at Habitat for Humanity, which is just up the street. The Montessori preschool, which is down the street, comes over and does garden club with us. The school across the street, we get to go to their assemblies, and it's creating, I think, what all of us look for when we move into a neighborhood, really just that community and support for each other, and we all get to grow together.
That's exciting. Heather, what brought you here as Executive Director to Stevens Place? What's the backdrop? What's the story?
Heart. So if we're being literal about it, it would be that I worked for Cooney Automotive, which Cooney Foundation is the organization that paid for and built and continues to fund Stevens Place as we grow. I worked for Cooney for many years, and my heart and some of my educational background and experience lends itself to being here and caring about the residents that we have. And our CEO at the time, Greg Goodwin, asked me to come here and help make sure that things kind of got up and running, and I never looked back enough to say this is what I want to do and where I want to be. But that passion and the love for the residents that we have, every day I walk in here, it's as great as every day walking home into the house to, see my kids. I'm just as excited, and I don't think many people get that opportunity in life. So I feel really blessed.
And again, we had talked about this earlier. quality of life indexes, quality of life indicators. Just some of the research I've been doing related to the conference that New Wine New Wineskins is hosting on the subject of disabilities from isolation to invitation. One of the doctors at OHSU put me on to this research on the Down syndrome paradox, quality of life indicators, that a lot of times individuals with disabilities don't look at their quality of life as diminished. In fact, sometimes those in their community, often those in their own family networks, feel that their lives are enhanced in relation to just what you had said, that you go home to your family, you feel enhanced there, you feel enhanced here. There's a quality of life indicator that I think is paradoxical to many people, that there's an enrichment. And I think in our society at large, we have such limited imaginations that we think that people in this context wouldn't have vibrant lives, but they do. And there's a prejudice, unfortunately, that often is associated with the normal kind of society that we live in, that maybe we're the ones that are really abnormal at times. So I don't know if you want to speak to that at all, but you mentioned quality of life here, it's enhanced here, and you just love your job.
Yeah. I could go a million places with that. One, I think it's our role as people who get to be a part of the lives of our residents and other people with disabilities who come into Stevens Place. It's our role to make sure that not only are we working with them in a way that we treat them like we would anybody else, but that we help the greater community understand that I always say, we all have disabilities, if that's how we're going to phrase it, or we all have differences. It's just that sometimes mine are more accommodated for in society out there than our residents are. But how great if we all understood what disability truly means, just a difference. And sometimes a greater challenge than some of my differences. But if we all supported each other in those moments, places like Stevens Place might not have to exist. There might not be that need for greater safety or security or support to grow in those areas that they want. We have a resident who always wanted to go to college, and it was something she had talked about, but the confidence sometimes is an area that needs building, and worked really with her in that, and our whole team supported her, and nobody said, "Are you sure you can do it?" which is so often what somebody will be, will have said to them. And she started college last month and is loving it, and has those days like we all do in college that are hard and frustrating, and gets to experience all of the things that everybody else should, because nobody has told her, no, you can't, or you shouldn't. And that's really, that's the way that it should be. But then the experience that she gets out of it is fantastic. She grows, she learns, but she never thought that she couldn't in the beginning. It was just that confidence. And, you talked about quality of life and the belief that people with disabilities don't really look at themselves as having disabilities, and they recognize a difference, but many times we'll have people say, oh, my biggest disability is something that you and I wouldn't think of. We had somebody say, my biggest disability is my height. A person who was a lot shorter, and yet and for them that was something that they considered their challenge in life, not their disability.
Yeah, my biggest disability is my sense of humor. At least that's what people tell me. So.
I've got a whole list. I do. I have to remind my residents, and that there's this whole list of disabilities that we have in life, and each of us has that list, and whatever's on it shouldn't be the reason that we stop doing, or shouldn't be the reason that we don't do something.
It builds resilience, and you probably get inspired by the residents, and we'll ask about that in just a few minutes. And you've gotten at this, the vision and the values, the mission of Stevens Place. Further to what you said, what would you wish to add to that?
Yeah, other than making sure our residents have a place where they will always be supported in life, it's just that basic safety net, the building of community, and the realization that everybody that lives here, just like everybody else, should have all that life has to offer and not be limited by what society thinks that they should be limited by.
Thank you. And what are some of those highlights? You mentioned the resident who said, well, their disability is their height or, shortness, whatever the case might be. What are some other stories that really stand out to you that really have just really spoken into your own life with the residents here?
Yeah, looking at, we all have challenges and face challenges in life, and looking at, I think, the friendships and relationships that have been built, and how that gets some of our residents through those moments. When you bring people together who, you think of any other apartment community, and you have people living separately and yet all together, and how often do you get all of them to come to this place where we don't all have to get along and like each other, or we don't all have to like each other, but we all have to get along, right? And at the end of the day, it's beyond getting along, it's supporting each other. We've had residents all go to a dance together, and one of our male residents was really unhappy that one of our female residents was dancing with somebody who he didn't think was a very nice guy. So he came back to make sure, that we knew she was dancing with somebody that wasn't a very nice guy. This probably wasn't a good choice for her. Not that they were friends, right, but they had each other's back. Yeah, they care. That creating a friendship and caring and sitting down to a meal together in the dining room and telling the stories at the end of the day is family and is community and is something that everybody deserves to have. So it's great to be able to give that to our residents and make sure that, at the end of the day, we're not giving it, they're creating it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Last question, Heather, is when you think about the future of Stevens Place, what are your hopes as executive director, someone who's really invested in this community, and also for the society at large? Because, you had said before, you almost wish that there was such inclusion in our society, there wouldn't even be a need for such a great place as this. But even so, what would your hopes be, both for Stevens Place and for the society at large, as it relates to serving with, alongside of those with disabilities?
Yeah, pardon me. So goals for Stevens Place, obviously we would love to continue growing our community, and not just the community that lives here, but the community that we support that comes in and shares our space with us on a regular basis. And after that, I would love to see us grow into other areas that we can support the disability community, those with disabilities. And then beyond that, in the greater community, better understanding for everybody. I regularly have my kids in here to make sure that they understand that the people that live here are just as awesome as everybody else in the world, and that expectation of knowledge and the responsibility that comes with that knowledge is carried through their day and when they go to school and when they meet people who have disabilities or differences than them. And that would be my wish for society in general, that we all understand disabilities doesn't have to be a negative label, and many times can actually be something inspiring, a different way to look at something, a challenge to be more creative in life and to understand things in a different way. You look at so many people with disabilities that have done amazing things, and probably the limitations that we place on people with disabilities have created a number of people who could have done more but haven't because of that. So making sure that everybody gets the same opportunity in life. I always say we're all human beings, right, and that really is it. At the end of the day, we're all human beings and deserve to have the same things and be treated the same and given the same opportunities.
And then to be together as a
and
community.
Be together,
at large.
Build that community. And the more that a community comes together to support and understand each other, I think the better off we'll all be. That understanding.
Yeah. Heather, thanks so much. It's just a delight to be able to interview you and to get to know the work here at Stevens Place and hear your heart and your vision. It's really powerful. And so thank you so much. And Heather, Heather Stenberg,
Thanks.
Louis Metzger, thank you for joining us at New Wine Tastings.